Good afternoon or good evening to you, depending on your time zone. For anyone who is celebrating, and please forgive any poor pronunciation, Gong Hei Fa Choi, I am, of course, wearing lucky reds today in celebration of Chinese New Year, the year of the tiger, I believe. And if I will stand corrected, I believe that means a year of confidence and competitiveness, I was reading. So indeed, of course, it is a very competitive world, and anything that gives you a competitive edge is highly desirable. So I'm delighted to join this exclusive event for prospective career accelerator superstars. So normally for things billed as an exclusive event, this would be in person with some nice canapes to nibble, but clearly it's virtual and it's a little early in the day for canapes at this end. In the chat, happy Chinese New Year. So I suppose I should just begin with a little bit of a background about who on earth I am. So I am, there we go. On my hand, it's a bit magic. Ask me anything, AMA, ARMA, I don't know if that's the correct sort of pronunciation of the acronym, although that could be confused with autoregressive moving average ARMA modeling in a time series capacity, and indeed some time series data you would have exposure to in the Career Accelerator. Who am I? Gosh, I have various identities. Well, I've only got one name, but various roles rather than identities. My day job is as a lecturer, associate professorial lecturer, that's a big name, in statistics at the LSE. Indeed, I am a product of the LSE. X years ago, you will have to estimate the numerical value of X. I pursued my PhD in statistics at the LSE. And note how career plans can easily change. When I started the PhD, the intention was to complete it and go off and earn a telephone number salary in the sort of investment banking world. However, during those lean PhD years, I undertook some tutorials, so class teaching opportunities, fell in love with teaching. I was somewhat fortunate in that when I completed the PhD, someone in the department was retiring, they needed a lecturer, I needed a job, and I've been at the LSE ever since for the intervening Y years. Again, you'll have to estimate Y being, of course, less than X. So my day-to-day job is lecturing students at campus at LSE. However, I'm involved with various projects in our extended education unit. Indeed, one of those is for our new LSE Data Analytics online career accelerators in a partnership with FourthRev. And just to give you a little bit of the motivation of LSE for getting involved with career accelerators. Well, like most organizations, we would have periodic institutional reviews and set mission statements and goals for the years ahead. And these were in fact formed pre-COVID, but I think COVID has just given added sense of urgency and relevance to it, is to maximize global impact. And we appreciate LSE, a very small campus at the heart of central London, that not everyone is able to travel to London and live in London and study at LSE itself. And we wouldn't want there to be any sort of geographical barriers or financial barriers or other to accessing an LSE curriculum at whatever level. So this great work from home experiment forced upon us by COVID has, I think it's fair to say, we can anticipate at least some degree of hybrid working arrangements in the years ahead. And our digital offerings of education, and now through our online career accelerator, has itself accelerated in recent months and years. So for the Career Accelerator itself, again, I have multiple roles. One of my, on the screen, I'm called a course convener. Indeed, I am. I'm also an academic program coordinator. If I had a printed business card, I don't anymore, but I don't know if it would all fit on there. But that means I have sort of general academic oversight of the program to ensure that all learners, learners is our official designation, or participants on the Career Accelerator have a very fruitful and rewarding experience. So AMA, ARMA, ask me anything. This is quite a daunting prospect because I don't know what, questions are going to be. So, of course, having taught for Z years, well, no, Z equals Y, and again, I'm not given the value of that. Clearly, the hallmark of a great teacher is that whatever question is thrown at you, you can always, at least fudge an answer. And of course, the more naturally, incredibly one can do that, that's the hallmark of a really good teacher. So that'll be interesting. Now, before we get into the Ask Me Anything segment, I believe we have a little poll question. Candice, may I request you launch our poll? It's going to be so exciting. Wow, okay. So yeah, we always like these little icebreaker activities, and through Zoom, of course, the best way to do this is a Zoom poll.
Oh,
interesting.
We may be having a technical issue. I'm going to have to relaunch the poll. I'm sorry.
Okay. This is Candice just deliberately building the suspense.
Oh yeah.
All planned.
For some reason, our panelists can't answer. I'm going to end the poll and try one last time. Always a technical glitch on something like this. There we go. Okay.
That looks more promising, yes.
Now we should be all in. There we go.
Okay. Now I can see in real time what the results are.
It's very clear the last one is being avoided.
Indeed.
What would your answer be? Should we end the poll?
Let's end the poll. Okay.
And share the results.
Okay, now just to critique a few things. Okay, admittedly, as a data collection exercise, data comes in many shapes and forms, and admittedly here on a very small scale. I guess particularly in a business context, perhaps our initial thoughts or perceptions about what data might be would be maybe sort of internal secondary data or transaction data, if one thinks about e-commerce giants, I won't name names, but about what was sold, who bought what, when, etc., how much they paid, etc. And of course, there's a vast quantity of that data out there. But of course, particularly if we're trying to better understand consumers, I'm not saying you are consumers per se, but if we are wishing to gain some insights into people's attitudes, opinions, taste preferences, etc., typically one has to survey them and ask them. And we'll think of this as a very small scale survey. And if you're seeing exactly what I'm seeing on screen, look at that, a participation rate, 90%. In practice for surveys, I mean, to get a 90% response rate in practice is pretty much unheard of. I think if you got 10%, you'd be doing pretty well. However, while 90% is extremely good here, it's not that 100% figure. Note just the very simple bits of analytics being undertaken. You can see frequency counts. So the 8 breakfast, it is just after 10 a.m. here at London time. I had my breakfast earlier. 2 out of 9. So the data point, as it were, is 2, in that 2 people responded for 8 breakfasts. Now 2 by itself, or any number by itself, is pretty meaningless. One always needs a benchmark for comparison. So is 2 a big number? Is it a small number? Well, ultimately, it depends. And that answer of it depends, I think you will be indoctrinated with if you pursue the career accelerator, because allegedly, and I think it's pretty much true, the answer to all of life's questions is it depends. But note, 2 by itself, fairly meaningless, 2 out of 9, a fraction, but then a simple conversion to a percentage, 22%. So 22% of respondents admitted to eating breakfast during an online meeting. Now, if because of my status in this Zoom call, I was unable to vote. Had I been able to vote, I would have actually picked the bottom one. Other but my lips are sealed. Now, interestingly, no one answered that. Now, this itself could be an example of response bias in that maybe some of you, the truthful answer, no, but for some of you at least, maybe the truthful answer was the bottom one, but you didn't actually wish to respond to that. So although we have some data points, there's a lot of critiques we could make. Clearly, sample size, small, not 100% response rate. Albeit even if had there been just knowing 10 people all interested potentially in a career accelerator, you are clearly all therefore similar in that sense, and generalizing to the wider online population globally should be done with caution. And note, 7 to 8 billion people in the world, probably maybe 2 to 3 billion do not have internet access, and it's very easy to assume everyone in the world is online, but the reality is far from it. Small sample sizes, some percentages, maybe response bias, people not answering truthfully. Maybe for some of you, it's multiple answers and you could only answer one. So at a very small icebreaker level, some of the challenges that are at play with data collection and also data analysis. Let me just stop sharing that. And so this is an Ask Me Anything session. And therefore, I suppose it is the opportune moment. I'm bracing myself here to be asked anything. I'm hoping these are nice questions like, what's your favorite color? I've been practicing those. So I'm quite flexible how we do this. If you would like to ask through the chat, please do. If you'd like to be brave and unmute yourself, you're welcome to do so as well. And I'm happy to field yeah, well, whatever questions come my way. I have a support network behind the scenes who can chip in for anything I would have no idea on.
I'm pretty sure there's going to be some really useful questions. Everyone we invited today is super keen to be here. So would anyone like to be first? Oh, there's actually an anonymous in the
Okay.
get us started.
Oh, yes, I have my the Q&A feature. There we go. Hi, James. I was wondering what your thoughts were on the most useful coding languages for a data analyst these days. Excellent question. A great starter. This is a nice one to come up because this is a question which is frequently asked in all sorts of contexts, and therefore I know exactly how to respond. I suppose I'll begin by saying it depends. Well, if I may, I like to take an analogy. Analogies really are perfect in life, but I think they're great from a sort of teaching perspective. You mentioned coding languages. Let's just take away the word coding for a moment. Just consider sort of ordinary sort of spoken languages, of which there must be probably tens of thousands of languages, dialects, etc., around the world. Now, I did study languages years ago. W there, a few languages, and I love languages, but I didn't practice them and have become extremely rusty since. But one needs to be realistic in a language setting, in that no one is ever, even a polyglot. Maybe if you're lucky, you might master 10 or 12 languages fairly fluently in a lifetime. Okay, but not realistically much beyond that. Turning to coding languages, the more you know, the better it is, but one needs to be realistic and you can't know everything. Now, specifically, the question about just a bit, I think, answered, I'm still answering. The most useful. Well, as of today, I would say things like Python and also R would be extremely useful. Clearly, though, things change over time, and what will be sort of dominant coding languages in 5, 10, 20, 30 years time, your remaining career span is expected to be, but things do change. But I would say it's not so much about which specific languages, coding languages or spoken languages you know, just that the more you know, the easier it is to learn new ones on a need to know or need to use basis. Now, it may be that a specific employer has a preference for one coding language over another. And clearly, other things equal, it will be, if one was applying for a job in that situation, it will be better to already know that coding language than not. But like spoken languages, if you say you can speak 5 languages, but an employer wants you to be able to speak a different one, if you can demonstrate proficiency in 5, learning another one shouldn't be too difficult. Okay, arguably, spoken languages, I mean, there are different families of languages, and perhaps, you know, sort of European language versus an Asian language, not, you know, perhaps not so easy to go from one to another, but from coding languages, I would say, you know, knowledge of one makes it very easy to have mastery of others. Of course, this should be linked to the Career Accelerator and what programming languages are included there. Well, not just on programming languages, but more generally, when we designed the curriculum, of course, the 3 courses leading into the final employer project, we were always mindful, we meaning LSE and FourthRev, mindful about the demands of industry and giving you very much in-demand skills. So Python is more dominant within the Career Accelerator, featuring in course 2, but also some exposure to R in course 3. But say like languages within a particular family of languages. Once you know one and the basics of sort of syntax, grammar, some vocabulary, I think you're being able to pick up similar languages, programming languages in future, very easy to do. One other point, if I may. I mean, mastery of a spoken language, your practice makes perfect. And you know, how quickly, if you speak multiple languages, how long did it take you to achieve some basic proficiency into intermediate, ultimately perhaps fluency? Was it, you know, weeks, months, years? Clearly, people will pick these up at different moments or at different rates. And in any language, no one will know every word or every grammar rule. With coding languages, I would say to be able to learn how to do everything in a particular coding language to achieve that mastery, you know, that would take indeed time, and practice makes perfect. But long-winded answer. But Python seemed at present, and in recent, you know, looking at recent trends, Python seems to be extremely popular due to its sort of it's perhaps easier to pick up than R, and that's why in the Career Accelerator, we give you a lot of exposure to Python first, such that you are then more familiar with coding languages, and then in the second half of course 3, some exposure of R. But you know, it can just be a personal preference. Take computers, you know, are you Windows, are you Mac? Broadly, it doesn't matter that much. You can send an email or you write a document using either, but then perhaps you have one preference over another.
Awesome. There's actually another question in the chat, sorry, about confusion, from Kevin. Will there be opportunities to hone my soft skills, for example, critical thinking, communication, working under pressure, such that I'd master them by the end of the course?
Yes, yes, and yes. So I really like this Career Accelerator because it's not a it's not a conventional academic program. So, well, the LSE, yes, a lot of learners on the first cohort who just started their first formal week of instruction on yesterday, in fact, yes, 31st of Jan. Of course, the prestige of the LSE and saying you studied material curated by LSE is a sort of big selling point. But for standard internal LSE programs, they tend to be almost exclusively academic oriented, which I mean are great things, but I always care about real world applicability. And throughout the Career Accelerator, and this is where FourthRev brings significant added value, is to focus not just on the academic, but also, shall we say, well, you mentioned soft skills. I'm going to call them a mixture of, well, communication skills, transferable skills, etc. And built into the curriculum, really from day one onwards, is developing, focusing on different areas at one time or another, those soft skills. I will perhaps just give a few examples. Clearly, it's an online Career Accelerator, and therefore there is an obvious challenge of studying completely remotely. And of course, maybe some people will have a fear of perhaps some type of maybe alienation if you're studying seemingly in an isolated way. Well, we clearly wish to foster a strong sense of online community, or the collaboration, and you would start to meet your peers in an orientation, 2-week orientation framework. And then throughout the accelerator itself, opportunities to be working in teams, giving peer review feedback, which in itself, I say, is an excellent skill to be done, not so much in an overly critical way, but in a sort of constructive criticism, to review people's work, be it a sample dashboard or a little bit of a code, and offer their views about what was good about it or what could potentially be improved. But there is a strong emphasis indeed on those soft skills, some presentations. You'll be recording some pieces to camera, we'll be writing some written reports. So communication, of course, has various angles, the oral, the written, and also listening. Perhaps I was slightly guilty of not being a great listener, depending on context. But being able to listen, I think, is a great skill as well. So yes, we tried to take quite a sort of holistic approach to our curriculum development, and many opportunities for developing those skills, culminating in that employer project after your 3 main courses. And you'll be working as part of a team, of course, you're geographically very dispersed, and being able to work effectively as a collective. And I'd like to think, given everyone has different strengths and weaknesses, that the output of a team effort to something is typically greater, strictly greater, than the sum of its individual parts. And inevitably, some people are better on the coding side, some people are better on the visualization side, but as a unit, as a group, I think for the employer project, and where one can sort of consolidate all of those soft skill learnings from throughout the career accelerator to that point, in demonstration of a very valuable final project, which would be great for giving us a case study and a portfolio at a job interview.
We have Rasheed. Rasheed, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, or wherever you are.
No, good morning. I'm close by in Amsterdam, so all good.
Okay.
I'm braving the mic here. So I've got, if you allow me, I have two questions. Hopefully, the first one is a fairly quick one, and that is, understanding fully that this is a career accelerator. If the sort of the ultimate goal for somebody to go through something to obtain a master's or eventually a PhD in data science or data analytics, how would you rate this on sort of that trajectory, specifically around what sort of possibilities are there within the LSE? My second question, and feel free not to answer it because I don't want to take too much time here, is, with specifically the world that we live in today and the misinformation and all of that, the one side of data analytics and dashboard creation and what have you is sometimes allows for misuse potentially. And kind of giving sound bites to a lot of media outlets, let's say, for the lack of a better phrase now. So where does the engineer or the data scientist sort of preserve, or what can one do to preserve the integrity of what they are doing in that sense? And like I said, feel free not to answer the second question. I don't want to take too much.
No. I think two very contrasting questions. If I may, I'll take them in reverse order, if I may. So take the, it's a very valid point, and there's a lot of misinformation out there. Now, okay, in an ideal world, and I appreciate, well, this is not always as we would wish it to be, but in an ideal world, I think, well, let's rephrase it. Okay, everyone sees the world through their own eyes in whatever respect. economically, politically, whatever. We all see the world through our own eyes, and we have our own perceptions of the world. And that's natural. We're human, and inevitably one has perceptions on anything. However, I think most people's perceptions on most things in any domain often differ from the reality. So a major problem in the world, I would say, for poor decision making is this, I'll call it like a perception reality gap. Okay? In that most people tend to make decisions based on their perceptions. Of course, if those perceptions are severely distorted for whatever reasons, if they differ significantly from reality, then the decisions they make are unlikely to be good decisions. So where does data come in? Well, if small but critically important word, if we have good quality data, there is potential, I'm not saying it's always achieved, but there is potential to, if not eliminate, at least try and sort of reduce that sort of perception reality gap. Take COVID, for example, COVID charts. I'm sure I think you are geographically looking at the chat, Prague, Amsterdam, etc., etc. So you're all in different parts of the world, and you must have seen COVID charts related to your own country and maybe some international comparisons as well. Now, clearly, just on terms of how a COVID chart is put together, the narrative that or the story you're trying to convey is clearly potentially sensitive to how that visualization is constructed. What are you plotting? Is it hospitalizations? Is it cases? Is it fatality savvy? Is it using a linear scale or a logarithmic scale? Are you zooming in on a particular part of the chart to try and convey massive growth or reduction in cases when actually the reality, if you were zooming out and looking at it more objectively, perhaps the story is quite different. So clearly there is, I think the fact that a huge amount of misinformation out there. Clearly, what we would wish to do in the Career Accelerator is to teach you to, if you are yourselves ever analyzing data, visualizing it, whatever, for public consumption or consumption within an organization, that you do this in a very much an objective way and not be deliberately misleading, but also to train you in these, not to make you do things in a misleading way, but to make you aware about what the little tricks of the trade are to give a misleading picture, such that if you were to ever critique the analysis of others in whatever domain, that you can sort of be a force for good and call out misinformation, which of course might be unintentional. So there's a lot of use of data, there's a lot of abuse of data, absolutely fair to say. But how do we combat that? Well, you've got to start somewhere, and the more people we can train you the right way and to do things objectively, I think that's the best we can hope for. To touch on your first question, so leading into say like a master's degree, ultimately a PhD. Well, in terms of sequencing, in the UK system, whether it's LSE or other institutions, but go LSE. That's my LSE red as well. Sorry, it's Chinese New Year, but also LSE red is the main corporate color there. So there you go. And that's why I had a choice of backgrounds. There's a blue one and a pinkish one. That's why I'm sorry, digressing. I've not checked. Sorry. You see, I had that choice as well, but you see, I thought there you don't get the contrast with the red, so I'm gone for this one. And Candice, by chance, have the same one as me. I'm sorry. Most universities in UK, and I'd say broadly around the world, if one wished to do a PhD, you would tend to do a master's degree first. Okay, US, they tend to sometimes package up a master's and a PhD as one thing and begin with the master's and transition into the PhD. So how does a career accelerator fit into this? So, I'm sure you've been aware of our various sort of entry criteria. For the most part, career accelerators will have had a degree in some area, usually with at least one sort of quantitative module in there. Maybe exceptions, maybe someone had not been to university, and provided they can demonstrate some proficiency, and we want to maximize access to this program. But where would we sort of position it in sort of the hierarchy of sort of qualifications? I would say, we are pitching this, say the vast majority are graduates in some fields, so we can put this in sort of the postgraduate category, albeit it's not a sort of full master's degree. In terms of applying for masters places. LSE, in fact, because you mentioned it, it's allowed to speak on about LSE. We are, fun fact, primarily a postgraduate university. We have more master students at LSE than undergraduate students. And that is very much the exception to the rule. Almost all universities, the undergraduates dominates in size. So huge numbers of master's programs. And be it LSE or elsewhere, there's a lot of competition for places on master's programs. And almost all universities would operate a competitive entry process. I say nearly all. There may be some nepotism in various parts of the world, but you know, I think anywhere you would wish to go, competitive entry. And of course, there's more heterogeneity of master's applicants than undergraduate applicants. Undergrads, for the most part, say 17, 18, 19 years old, maybe they had a gap year, albeit no traveling much for the last year for conventional gap years, but they tend to be of a very similar age group. Masters, much more variable. Yes, some will complete a bachelor's degree and wish to go straight into masters, either because they were unable to get a job or been a bit apprehensive about going into the real world and just delay that inevitability for another year. But we also have large numbers of master's applicants as sort of mature students, which is very broadly defined, with very different experiences, work experience. So anything that gives you a competitive edge. Now, there are no certainties in life, other than death, taxes, and for me, sometimes computer credits. But everything else is uncertain. So in this world of uncertainty, the best you can do is to increase or maximize your probability of success. So I would say this very objectively, the Career Accelerator, having this, other things equal, having this on your CV, in an application for a master's program does not guarantee a place, but I think would, particularly if you're looking for a more data-oriented master's degree, obviously, would give you a competitive edge in that admissions process. But admissions officers, I mean, they will take a holistic view of every applicant. It's not just qualifications. A personal statement, why you want to do a particular master's degree matters enormously. And I'm not saying the exact percentage weighting attributed to that, but you could have a best CV, but if your personal statement was abysmal, then that's probably certainly an instant rejection. So I'd say this is a great value add. I see no real downside to it, and especially if you're looking for a more quantitative master's degree, ultimately into PhD, I think this will be highly beneficial, because of some of those core skills you'd be obtaining. Those soft skills matter. And a lot of master's applicants, they trumpet their academic achievements, which may, of course, always good to have, but maybe are unable to work in a group or are unable to stand up and give a presentation, etc. And clearly in the quant sphere, some coding expertise like Python and a little bit of R as we train you in, again, that would all add value to the application. So no certainties, but I think this would very much increase your probability of success.
Amazing. That's
a good answer, wasn't it? I thought that's
I
was quite proud of that one.
Rasheed can comment if he wants.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Amazing.
Great.
Okay, so I'm quite aware that we're a little bit over time. We do have one raised hand and one more question. James, are you able to stay and answer those two?
I am. I know I had a meeting just before this one, but I have nothing in the diary straight after. So.
Amazing. Okay, cool. So if anyone else would like to leave, please feel free. But otherwise, I'm going to ask you Munashe's question. I apologize if I've pronounced your name incorrectly. But Munashe is asking, as a novice to data analytics, how easy is it to get up to speed, as I have no programming and coding language or experience?
Great question. And I was mentioning about heterogeneity of master's applicants. Well, I'd say the same would apply, well, looking at our first cohort for the Career Accelerator. I reviewed several of the applications, and I could see huge variation in skill sets that people were bringing to the table, as it were. This should not be a concern at all. Broadly, a slight spoiler alert here. So in course one, after you've been onboarded and with your orientation. Course one is a gentle introduction. We are conscious that for many aspiring career accelerators, while you've all had an education previously, you may have been out of a formal learning environment potentially for several years. If you've just been working in an office for X years, X years, clearly you've been working, but working versus studying are two different things. And for some, potentially, if I had to suddenly sit an exam today, my exam skills, and you do as I say, not as I do, my exam skills are no doubt terribly rusty. So course one is a little bit about getting you back into the swing of learning, and fairly gentle introduction in course one, focusing on Excel. And I'm sure all of you have dabbled in it to some extent, but hopefully a few new top tips and tricks to use in Excel. Tableau for dashboarding, very easy to do. If you've never used Tableau, the great thing, one of the great things about it is its ease of navigability. So drag and drop interface, and within about an hour's playing around with it, you can actually start to generate some pretty decent visualizations. Some SQL or SQL, depending on pronunciation, you prefer, on databases and basic database management in course one. And the programming, the coding really starts to come in course two. Now, inevitably, I would expect of anyone who's interested in a data analytics career accelerator, almost inevitably some would have some prior programming experience for general interest. However, there's no expectation of it. Clearly, those who do have some prior exposure to it will be at a slightly advantage or head start, as it were, in the programming content. But just to take the career accelerator as a whole, everyone joining will have some prior knowledge in one or other specific area that the career accelerator touches on, whether that's Excel, whether that's a bit of visualization, Tableau we use, Power BI, some of you may have had exposure to previously, or whether it's coding. But this is why there's a strong that sense of community, and by working in groups, you can benefit from each other and you can support each other. And no one knows everything. No one is an expert in everything. And so when you help someone out in one area, they can sort of return the favor, or whichever time order, in some other. So this should not be a concern. But if you don't know, well, there's no time like the present, and it's always good to get started. And that's why, in this case, I think the Career Accelerator, you look at the outcome after roughly 6 months in total. How have you grown as an individual? I don't mean height-wise, but mentally sort of grown, and how has your skill set grown? So, of course, you should wish in any type of study to learn new things and advance your skill set. But no prior knowledge is expected. So take it literally from assuming nothing. Of course, those who have some prior exposure, they will know perhaps those very basics, but even so, brushing up on the basics is never a bad thing. When I was teaching as a PhD student, it was for a first year undergraduate course, easy peasy stuff, right? Well, when you teach something, it really forces you to, even though it may be the basics, it really forces you to quickly forget the basics, and to be well trained in the fundamentals of anything, I think, is always a worthwhile exercise, because if you don't use something, you lose it. So whether you have no coding experience or some, I think it's always beneficial to go back to the start.
Amazing. Awesome. And then we have a question from Lena. You should be able to unmute yourself, Lena.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
I can.
Hi.
We can.
Great. Thanks for the question. I mean, it's related pretty much to one of the previous questions regarding, obviously the impact of the accelerator on the career. I'm not sure how many batches you already had. Was it one or more? But generally, I'm wondering what kind of, what did you see with the participants from previous batches? Did you see them already switching career? I don't know, what was their path? Because obviously, one of my considerations is what kind of impact it will have on my career. How can I easily switch or not easily switch to more like analytical role. Currently, I'm working in more like in product management. So yeah, just how did you see this evolving, and how do you see generally this can help? Because I know that you have some industry partners. Do you think this somehow can help? And yeah, if you can a bit expand on this.
Of course, I see from the chat you were in Prague. I visited Prague 4 years ago. Beautiful city, loved it. Really nice. And Karlovy Vary, if the pronunciation is right, went on. Yeah, and I'm a bit of a James Bond fan, and I was unaware that this was actually the film setting for Casino Royale, because in the film it's mentioned it's set in Montenegro, and I assumed the place it was filmed in was in Montenegro, but I didn't realize that they lied.
I actually didn't know that it was in Karlovy Vary. Okay.
Yeah, and there's the Grand Hotel Pup, it's pronounced. That's what played the role of the Casino Royale in the film. And you go there, beautiful day trip. I loved it, and lovely to walk around. And there was little. It's used, I think, in many films. And on like the driveway into the hotel, they've got these bricks, a bit like the Hollywood Walk of Fame. There's a Daniel Craig one and a few others. But it was best day of my, well, not quite best day of my life, but one of the in the top 10 because of that great surprise. Anyway, sorry, I digress. Well, we have, this is a very, very new program. So we've only had one cohort to date, and they just started. They were onboarded in January, and they just completed their orientation and have just started their first core content as of yesterday. So, so I can only comment on those. Now, in terms of their backgrounds and why they were doing it, various reasons. For some, it was reskilling. Let's simplify. Let's say broadly, it was a mixture between reskilling and upskilling. Okay, so upskilling, they've already been dabbling with data to some extent, but they like to take this to the next level. Reskilling, they're working or have been working in one area and wish to sort of transition into a data, more of a data-driven career, or perhaps to stay in their main role, but to have greater awareness and appreciation about what's possible with data. So it's very diverse in terms of the reasons why people do this career accelerator. Of course, what matters is at the individual level, it's of value to you specifically. And you can see how this can help advance your career. Now, maybe it's a 6-month journey. Maybe at the start of those 6 months, you don't have an exact clear sense about what's next for your career. And as part of the Career Accelerator, you will have access to a career coach, a team of coaches, assigned one, and they will work with you throughout the Career Accelerator about refining CVs, interview skills, and advising about the career next steps. I mean, ultimately, progression in a career will be down to the individual, and one has to take the initiative about applying for things, whether it's promotions or transfers within your existing organization, or whether it's to move to a rival company or completely different sector. So, but long term, I'm going to make a prediction here that our first Career Accelerator cohort is by no means our last, and over time, that variation will always be there. And as and when we have career accelerators complete, clearly we would wish to monitor where they end up and can be sort of brand ambassadors for the Career Accelerator. Of course, being brand new, there are no such alumni of the program yet, but diverse intake, and I would expect quite diverse outcomes about where they end up and the roles that they take. So, and during the Career Accelerator itself, inevitably, you would find some topics more interesting or appealing than others. Is it the visualization that you think, I love this, and that's what I really wish to focus on? Is it the database management? Is it the programming? Is it the more sophisticated analytics? So we give you some exposure to multiple areas, and in practice, no one's an expert in everything. The chief data visualization officer, if that's even a job role, it would be a great title to have, is not necessarily that proficient in programming. They have perhaps a little bit of expertise, whereas your chief programming officer, again, if that's a job title, may be not so well versed in visualization, but knows the basics. So by having exposure to different things, it's only really through trial and error and experimentation that you find out what really appeals to you. And then, of course, once you found your sweet spot about what really you're passionate about, then you can go on and really specialize in that field. So, yeah, I don't have a single answer about where people will go. I expect it will be highly diverse geographically, sectors, kinds of roles. But again, coming back to an earlier answer about increasing probability of success. Of course, what do you judge success by? Is it the job title? Is it the salary? Is it the company you work for? Success will mean different things to different people. But I think the career accelerator model, still itself pretty new, not just new at LSE, but within the higher education sector itself. And I think it's fair to say, higher education sector is not known for being that innovative or quick moving. It's quite sclerotic, very slow moving to take innovations. However, I think at LSE, we are sort of, yeah, why not say that? In offering these career accelerators. And why do these new types of program come into existence in higher education? Because it's responding to demand. Not just doing a career accelerator for the sake of let's do a career accelerator. It's because there is a demand from industry for people with a good blend of skills. Yes, academic knowledge about how models are built, but also the soft skills that were previously mentioned, and of course in the data sphere, the visualization, programming, etc. As well. So this is a bit of a hybrid program between the academic and the practical. And I think that's a great feature of the accelerator to give learners, as we refer to, I wanted to call, I didn't personally like that. So I wanted to call the participants the accelerators, because it's a really good title, but I was overruled. Learners, it's too bland. But anyway, as learners, get really the best of both worlds and can take things forward to wherever you wish. But the world will be ever more data driven, and the more data skills you have, I don't see the downside. In short.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful.
Go to Carla Vivari then for a day trip. If I don't know what restrictions are in place.
Yeah,
I recommend it. And also, and they have these. There's these springs. There's some underwater spring network, and there's these series of fountains throughout the tower, and about 30 or so, and you can buy a special, it's a tourist thing, but you buy a special mug and you can actually drink these from each spring, and the temperatures vary and the mineral content varies, but it's meant to be a very healthy thing. It's a great little tourist thing. It's like hide and seek to find the fountains, and as you progress, it was great. Best day trip ever.
Will do, thank you.
Thank you so much for your question, Lena. I think, James, would you like to give us one final top tip before we wrap up?
Oh gosh, oh yes, you briefly on giving me a top tip. I hadn't thought of a top. Okay. Top tip.
I know you like.
Actually, I know. Here's one. I suppose not to be a top tip, it should be a task, but it framed as a top tip. Okay. Clearly, all of you are interested in progressing your careers. So don't take it from me. Go to some jobs website of choice, or even something like LinkedIn job search, and just type in a few keywords like data analyst, like Tableau, Excel, SQL, Python, R, whatever. Shove it in and see what results come up. And I think you would be interested, or not interested, surprised, maybe, hopefully, by not just the number of jobs, but the sort of variety of sectors where those job opportunities exist. And of course, from being somewhat selfish from a career perspective, you want to think about, well, what kinds of things, what sort of skills are employers asking for in real live job openings now, and to what extent you feel that you currently meet those criteria. Great, then apply straight away. If not, to what extent can this career accelerator fill in the sort of gaps in your skill set to make you a strong candidate for applying for that kind of position. So I think it's and obviously you can look at whatever geographical area that interests you, but I say try and look at it as a global search just to gain a sense about what the real job opportunities are. So that's my top tip / activity.
Amazing. Thank you so much, James, for attending this AMA. I know it can be quite a daunting experience.
No one asked me my favorite color. I was banking on that question.
What is your favorite color?
I'm gonna have to say red. Yes. Well, no, actually, it depends on mood, and I mean, I do like red, but I like blue. I mean, and I like purple. I like purple. Red.
Right. I feel like you have to
right
say
now,
that
red.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much to everybody for attending today. Kevin says maroon, maybe that's what you're looking for.
Maroon, crimson,
yeah. You'll see that I've posted a quick feedback survey in the bottom of the chat. If anyone would like to give us your 2 minutes to tell us what you thought of this event, it would be amazing. Otherwise, I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, and thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.